Order, order. Welcome to Reporters Without Orders, where we discuss what made news, what didn't, and what absolutely shouldn't have. Today, we have with us two of our brilliant, young, and incredibly brave reporters who have just come back from the hot spot of both communal and ethnic clashes. Hi, Sumedha. Hi, Shiv. How have you been doing?
Hi, Gurmehar.
Shiv, you're coming back from Manipur, and you were there for 3 weeks. Was this your first time covering a conflict?
Conflict, of that scale, of course, for the first time. I did cover parts of Delhi riots for Indian Express. But yeah, I haven't never seen so many arms, so many boots on the ground. So I think it was unique for me also. And I think I was overwhelmed by looking at the amount of arms people had at the time. Still they have. So that was, I think, shocking for me. But then, it stayed for a couple of days. Then I got used to seeing so many arms, so many automatic weapons on both sides.
And were you worried about being able to do your job? Or was there ever hesitance? And did you have any sort of internal guidelines that this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to cover this, this is how I'm going to fact check?
Pratik, Priyali and I were there to report what we see. So we did that. Of course, we had to be careful. We didn't want to come up with stories that could flare up tension, but we wanted to be as factual as possible. And we wanted to, of course, everything we did, we verified on the ground, we cross-checked. We had to be extremely careful, even whether we are reporting on survivor stories or we are reporting from the front line. So we had to be extremely careful of each sentence that we wrote. And I think we reported stories from both sides.
Yeah. And I think that is, of course, the most important thing as well. And I can't imagine the pressure that you, Priyali, Pratik must be facing, especially to know that you can't be biased. Anything you write should not be something that escalates the conflict that is happening. And I feel like that amount of pressure on such a young team is and for you to manage it is quite incredible.
But I also want to point out that people from both sides were very friendly towards us.
Yeah.
And they helped us a lot, especially local journalists. From both sides, they were very helpful whenever we required something, maybe some documents, maybe we needed some stats to back our stories, anecdotal stories. So that way, both sides were very helpful.
And I know that there was no internet for a long time. And I will come to, I think, the internet question. But I do want to ask Sumedha, you are coming back from Mewat as well. What was it like for you? And I know you've extensively reported on the Delhi riots too. Did you go into the story with some guidelines in place, how you're going to report, how you're going to approach it?
So I was not in Mewat when the violence broke out. So Anmol was there, my colleague. I started covering the aftermath of violence from Panipat, where one of the Bajrang Dal member died. And then I moved to Mewat. Both Anmol and I moved to Mewat to see the aftermath. We cannot compare this with Delhi riots because it was an incident of 3. It was they started on 24th of Feb and then they died down by 28th of Feb and over 50 people were killed in Delhi riots. But something of that sort has not happened in Haryana. There have been some 5 to 6 casualties, out of which 3 of them are from Bajrang Dal people. But but Haryana violence, so there's no comparison between the two as of now. But it's something which is for the first time happened in Mewat. Mewat, it's a dominant Muslim community. So the best part about Mewat, what people say is the violence had not occurred even in 1947 when the partition took place. So there was Mahatma Gandhi had said that the Meo Muslims won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So the violence had occurred in Alwar during the partition, but not in Mewat. So this is for the first time after 47 that something of this sort has happened, and it is of worry because in Mewat Muslims and Hindus share a very strong and tight bond with each other. And one thing which is different in Mewat is that the communal clash has not occurred in the between the amongst the Hindus and Muslims who reside in Mewat. So the Hindus So the Hindus were from outside the area of Mewat. So now it is to be seen that how the relationship between the resident Hindus and Muslims will change over the time.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that, and it's something that you mentioned quite a bit in your story as well, in your report as well. But could you give us maybe a bit more of like historical context for the communal tension in Panipat, particularly in the Mija colony?
This guy, Abhishek Chauhan, who's 22-year-old, he was part of the Jal Abhishek Yatra, which started from Gurgaon to Mewat, and he was a part of that yatra, and he had joined Bajrang Dal a year and a half ago. So my story talks about why did he join Bajrang Dal, who is he, and it is like how Bajrang Dal is percolating itself into amongst the minds of youngsters in Dhamija colony.
And could you also maybe tell us, I think just like sort of bouncing off of that, how has, you have this young boy Abhishek. I want to know, how has Abhishek's role in Bajrang Dal affected maybe the larger perception of the organization in his locality?
He had just joined Bajrang Dal a year ago, but what he was doing in Dhamija colony of Panipat was that he was influencing other people to join Bajrang Dal. Like after he joined Bajrang Dal, two members of his family joined after him. So like his story is interesting because his family tells us like till a year and a half ago, like even when he died, like his best friend was a Muslim guy, and he became aware after joining Bajrang Dal. So he would talk about, no, you should not buy fruits or vegetables from Muslim people, though despite the fact that he himself was running a shop with a Muslim best friend.
Yeah.
So that was the irony of it, and that how Bajrang Dal people were trying to influence his mind. So that's the story about.
That's quite upsetting. Did you speak to his family as well?
Yeah, we spoke to their his family members. That's how we got to know that like his best friend was a Muslim, and his family only told us, like it's his mother, his sisters, and his sister-in-laws. They all told us that after he joined Bajrang Dal, he started talking about that Hindus need to be more aware of their enemies who are Muslims, and he had started and the youngsters in his neighbors had also joined Bajrang Dal because he spoke to them, and then he would talk, and then he would frequently fight with Muslims in his colony over small things,
including his best friend.
Not his best friend. His best friend, like that relationship with his best friend was sacred. Like when I went there, his best friend's mother was also present during his funeral, and she was also crying, but she was also feeling sad because like after his death, his family has started saying like हम पहले कभी भी इतने anti Muslim नहीं थे, but अब हम नहीं चाहते कि ये लोग इस area में भी रहे. So his best friend's mother, who's Muslim, was sitting there and she didn't utter a word. It was so embarrassing for her.
I feel like it's such a tender story in so many ways and so political, because I feel like a lot of people in our homes, we have these relationships where a lot of our, where we disagree with the people who we have, on our politics. A lot of times conversations about religions are quite stressed as well. But I think this is where those sort of tensions sort of almost, it feels like, come together, culminate and just like and just go off. This is where you truly see how everyday hatred impacts a normal regular citizen's life. But I think coming if you want to go, I mean,
I was just saying that Dhamija colony could be seen as a laboratory of Bajrang Dal people. Like till a year and a half ago, none of its residents were a part of Bajrang Dal. It's only a year and a half ago. So how would they influence youngsters' mind is a telltale of how they are behaving, like how they are trying to percolate in other parts of the country.
And if they've succeeded in breaking off a friendship that was, like you said, sacred, you can truly see the power of that propaganda. But I think always talking about personal stories, I know that Shiv, you did a lot of human interest stories when you were while you were in Manipur. And I think I do want to ask you, among all the stories that you've encountered of people, are there any that particularly resonated with you, or that you would want to share?
I think the divide between Meiteis, who are the dominant community in Manipur, and they are mostly concentrated in the valley region, and the Kukis who they live in hills. The divide is so deep that, I mean, the friendship, like people don't call each other. Like if there was friendship between Meiteis and Kukis, they don't call each other. And they are so divided, they are so partisan. So the narrative which comes from the Kuki side, so like everybody speaks in unison. Like Kukis, they want separate administration, they want total separation from Manipur. And on the other hand, Meiteis, they also speak in unison, saying that 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 n- they talk about narco terrorism, they talk about illegal immigration from Burma. So that way, I think it has destroyed the tenuous fabric that Manipur had. One scholar said that before violence broke out, I mean, he said that both the communities had lived together separately, but now the separation is there on the ground also. So once it happened, like when we were after covering Imphal area, we were going towards Churachandpur. Churachandpur is one of the hill districts, and it's the I think second largest district in Manipur. It's dominated by Kukis. So there were 5 blockades before you enter Churachandpur from Imphal side. So you cross Imphal, then you go to Bishnupur. Bishnupur is Meiteis dominated. Then you reach Churachandpur. So there were 5 blockades, and these blockades, the 3 of them were maintained by the army and central army armed police forces, and the rest 2 by the civilians, Kuki civilians. So there we saw that, look, the divide, right? So Kukis can't go to the other side, Meiteis can't come to Churachandpur or the hill districts. So it's that big a divide. Even journalists, I told you that how local journalists help us a lot.
Yeah.
If journalists is from either community, they can't cross into other territory. Even journalists in Manipur, they don't have this leeway of reporting from both sides. As a journalist, what you want to do, you want to report from both sides. So the divide is so deep that even journalists can't cross to the other area. So if you're a journalist from other than these 2 communities, it's safe. But if you're from either of the community,
Then
you
it's not
can't.
safe. Yeah.
So the divide is deep, and at the same time, if you can, I also saw. I mean, it's an open secret that administrative divide is also there. Police who are Kukis, who belong to Kuki community, they fled Imphal, they're serving from hill areas. Same time, teachers also. Same thing happening with Meiteis who were in the hills before violence, who were working in the government, either as teacher or police official or as a bureaucrat. They fled to the valley because Meiteis didn't feel safe. So divide is there. It's just that now, I mean, the action is at the foothills, where Meiteis territory, so to speak, ends and Kukis territory starts.
Yeah.
So at the foothills, you see a lot of bunkers. Kukis have their own bunkers. They have advantage because they have altitude advantage, and Meiteis also have bunkers, and they are separated by like vast expanse of paddy fields. So that's where it happens.
That's quite unfortunate. And before I went to speak to Sumedha, I mentioned the internet shutdown. How did it impact your reporting? Because I know we were trying to coordinate here, and there were, of course, messages that we weren't able to communicate properly. But I'm also trying to understand, how did that impact your reporting, getting in touch with journalists, fact-checking, getting in touch with local journalists, local sources, sort of the motions, the work problems that you encountered.
First, I'll talk about what problems we face without internet. For journalists, first thing is cross-checking, fact-checking. Without internet, we could not check the spelling of, because it was for the first time that I went to Manipur, and I'm not familiar with their names, because their names are, for me, it was very, like, I would not catch their name in one go, right? So I would note down the spelling. Even then, you want to cross-check, like, what is the correct spelling of that person? If he's an MLA or MP, right? You don't want to get it wrong. Then at the same time, if there is something that, suppose there is this gunfight going on tonight, if you're not sure about how many people injured and your officials are not answering your call, then you tend to look at Google, right? You want to search that's fight going on, how many injured and all, right? That's the normal course that journalists.
That's just instinctive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fact checking was big issue, and for journalists also, local journalists also. And in the internet shutdown story, internet, it's been more than 100 days. Since mobile internet was shut down. Now on July 25th, as we mentioned in the story, that broadband services were restored.
But not.
But no, there was notification on that day that broadband services would be restored, provided you give this undertaking that you won't use social media to peddle fake news or spread rumors, right? The ban was relaxed on broadband services on July 25th, but mobile internet still remains under suspension. The problem, it's not only journalists, people across the board, right? People from all walks of life, they suffered. Students, businessmen, they could not file IT returns, or they could not file GST filings, because before July 25th, if you are into essential services, like you are into media or you're running a hospital, you require internet services. Then what you do, you go to the home department, you give papers saying that I'm into essential services, I need approval. So the home department, on case to case basis, they will give you the approval, and you can, even if there's internet shutdown, you can avail internet services. I think the home department was favorable to applications from the valley, but they were not so favorable to applications from the hills. In the Hills Journalists Union, they told me that they submitted application long time ago, and their application was not approved. But at the same time, journalists based in the valley, so there's this I think all Manipur Journalists Union, AMJU, that's mostly Meiteis journalists. It's a organization, journalist union. So they submitted similar application. Their approval came, but it came a bit late, after 15 days of submitting the application, but it came. And all the media houses in the valley, they had internet connection before July 25th, the broadband. I mean,
before it was announced.
Yeah. So that's how, I mean, people would approach home department for internet connection. But this was not the case with the Hills people.
With this, the video segment of Reporters Without Orders is over. If you want to listen to the whole conversation, please go on our website, newslaundry.com, and it will be available in an audio format.
The subscription model is something that keeps Newslaundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free, और गर्व से कहो, मेरे खर्च पर आज़ाद है खबरें.